Houston, we have a podcast. Welcome to the official podcast of the NASA Johnson Space Center, episode 154, The NASA Worm. I'm Gary Jordan, and I'll be your host today. On this podcast, we bring in the experts, scientists, engineers, astronauts, even artists, all to let you know what's going on in the world of human spaceflight. The worm is back! Now, before you start practicing your dance moves, I'm talking about the NASA Worm logo. You'd recognize it if you saw it. It's that retro-looking logo where NASA is spelled out in red. We call that one the worm, and the blue one is called the meatball, at least informally. In the official NASA style guide, the meatball is called the insignia, and the worm is called the logotype. The worm has been retired for almost 30 years, and any official NASA product in that time has been branded with just the meatball. But just prior to the launch of NASA's SpaceX Demo 2 mission in May 2020, NASA brought back the use of the worm, and it's now being used for select missions and products. The worm design is super famous, and even though it's been retired, it's still very much part of pop culture. With a new era of human spaceflight upon us, the worm is making a comeback. So to describe this logotype and its history is the very man who designed it, Richard Daney. It was he and his firm, Daney and Blackburn, that was selected for NASA's rebranding in the mid-70s. Richard is an extremely experienced and award-winning graphic designer, and on this podcast, he describes the journey from the worm's creation to now, and what it means for NASA's future now that it's back. So here we go, the NASA Worm logotype with Richard Daney. Enjoy.
T-minus 5 seconds and counting. Mark. Launch commit lights are correct.
There she goes. Houston, we have a podcast.
Richard Daney, thank you so much for coming on Houston. We have a podcast today.
Hey, Gary, it's great to be with you, and thanks for the invitation.
What an honor to be talking to you, sir. The person who invented such an iconic logo. I want to take it from really the very beginning, really just a brief, summary of your biography up to the time that you started working with NASA, just to understand who you are and where you come from.
Okay, sounds fine. Well, I have an unusual background, so I'll very briefly give you some of that history. I was born on a farm in Oklahoma, and believe it or not, in 1934. Well, that's a significant date because, it's the middle of the Great Depression. And the overlay, which was quite fierce, was Dust Bowl, Oklahoma. And frankly, Gary, I don't recommend that as a start. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, it was a great beginning because everything went up from there, upwards. Mm-hmm. So the youngest of four children.